Today I'll be showing you how I make keychains that look like this. Today I'll be using beading wire, a pendant, a jump ring, a keychain clasp, ribbon, and faux pearls. The tools I'll be using are super glue, a lighter, wire cutters, flat nose pliers, and a crimper, as well as a pair of scissors. And the findings I'll be using today are going to be wire protectors, crimp covers, as well as crimp beads or crimp tubes. So everything I'm going to be using to create these pieces, I will have linked in the description via Amazon in case you want to pick up your own supplies so you can follow along with me. So making beaded keychains, I definitely recommend getting yourself some of these bead caps. I think it just adds like a lot to the bead and the piece overall. Like just imagine if these weren't there. I feel like it would definitely look a lot more bare, but it just adds that extra elegance and detail. And then I'll be using these frame beads as well as a spacer bead to put in the middle of it. I just have an assortment of beads I decided to use. I have some of these faux crystal gray beads as well as these faux pearls, this bigger teardrop bead as well. And then I have, like I said, these spacer beads as well. So I have both stars and these lantern looking ones. And then last but not least, I'm going to be using these tube beads. I also use this plain flat bead so that I can attach the ribbon onto here. Alright, I'm going to start with grabbing my silver beading wire, my 0.3 millimeter. I definitely recommend getting yourself this size because we're going to be using these wire protectors and it just won't be able to go through this tiny little hole right here. So you want to cut enough so that whenever you loop this right here, it'll still give you room to finish the jewelry after we put the pendant and all the beads on here. This is around, let's say 4 inches. Let's be a little safe. We'll go to 5 inches. Then we're just gonna go ahead and grab our wire cutters and snip. So now that you have your string cut out, you're gonna go ahead and put on your pendant as well as your flat bead, because I am going to put my ribbon onto this bottom part right here. If you wanted to change the placement and put it up here or in the middle or something like that, then that's when you would put that flat bead onto there. So at this point, I'm just going to be beading the design I want onto this keychain right here. And you can follow my lead or you can make your own design. Use wire protectors, crimp beads, and a crimp cover. So the first step is to put that crimp bead onto that wire and then the wire protector on there. Then you're going to take this leftover wire so that they can go into this loop right here. And then I'm going to hold on to both of these little edges or ends right here and then just move this up and it should look like that. Then you want to grab this end right here, go ahead and bead it into this crimp bead right here. Make sure that both of these wires are in there, and you're just going to hold on to your wire protector and onto this last end, and then you're just going to pull. Perfect, just like that. Personally, I like to leave a bit of room between the last bead and the crimp bead. So I'm gonna pull that up right here. So where my nail is where that last bead is at, and I want the crimp bead right there. So I'm gonna go ahead and try to keep that in place for the meantime. I'm gonna take my crimping pliers right here, and I'm going to put this crimp bead into that middle section right here. You can see that little divot. It's almost like a lips. That's what it reminds me of. I'm going to put that, there we go. So it should look like that. I don't know if you can see that very well. And then whenever you're doing this, you want to make sure that there's this like separation between the wires right here, so that when you crimp down onto this bead, this middle part will like go in, and it will make it so that the two wires won't go anywhere. I don't know how to explain it very well, but I hope you understand me. I'm gonna go crimp down, there we go. And when that's crimped down, I'm going to move it over to this back part right here and really secure it. So I'm gonna like use all my force to make sure that that is completely secured. I'm going to pull on this pendant end with all of my force so that I know that it won't come undone. After you know that your crimp bead is completely secured onto the keychain, you can grab your wire cutters and you can just cut off that excess. There you go. I need to sharpen my pliers. Last step is to grab your crimp cover, just place it in there, and then I'm gonna grab my flat nose pliers and I'm just going to secure it onto there. Oops. I like to use these because I find it like an extra protection, and also it looks better than if I just had that crimp bead in there, you know. And then so far you are all done with this first keychain part. Yours isn't supposed to look like this. I messed up. Oops. Ignore that, please. All right, for the second little keychain part, this part right here, we're going to do the same thing with the beading wire, but since that's going to be a bit shorter, we can cut maybe like around 3 or 4 inches. I'm going to grab my pendant that I'm going to be using for this shorter piece of the keychain. I'm just going to be beading this through. And because I'm not going to be putting any ribbon onto this one, I'm just going to start beading my design onto here. And basically this is just the same steps as the first keychain little part. But I like to put these glass beads onto here, just so that the focal point of this keychain isn't on par with this right here. Like I don't know, I personally like this balance, and also that they have a pearlescent to them, so I think it adds like pretty touch to them, especially in the sun. I do definitely recommend putting a spacer bead onto this last part as kind of like a divider between the glass and when we finish the jewelry, because if I were to accidentally crimp down onto this, it would break it, you know, so I don't want to do that. Then again, I'm going to grab myself a crimp bead, a crimp cover, and a wire protector. Then I'm not going to go into too much detail explaining this. If you want like a re-explanation of how I finish my jewelry, then I recommend going to finish jewelry, whatever I put on the keynotes or whatever. And then also this video up here if you want to watch that one. That one actually goes into a lot more detail on it. So since we have these two already done, you're going to grab your keychain clasp, whatever one you're going to use. Let me use this cute star one because I have moon pendants. And then you're going to grab a really thick, durable jump ring. A thick one like this is very important because if it's going to be on your bag, or, you know, a keychain is usually on places that you use often and, you know, dangle around and throw around and stuff. So I want to make sure that it's as thick as possible so it doesn't break on you, and then that would suck, you know. Then I'm going to grab my first keychain part and just bead that through, as well as this one. And then I'm going to put this into that jump ring as well. Then I'm just going to close it up. Then here's the first part of your keychain. Your keychain is more than halfway done. So the next step is going to be adding these pearls. How I gauge how long I want it to be, I kind of just measure it out roughly like this. I know the jump ring is going to give a little bit of space, so it'll probably look like this. Just using my wire cutter to cut that. And then this is how long this part should be. You're going to grab yourself another jump ring like this. Then you're going to find the middle of the pearl bead things. And then just go ahead and bead that through. Now you have to make sure that the jump ring that you choose is, of course, not only durable, but it has to be small enough so that the pearls don't actually move around and fall off the little jump ring. So you see what I mean? If that jump ring was bigger, then those pearls could slip out and then you wouldn't have a pearl chain on here anymore. I like to put the ribbon on very last, so I'm gonna go ahead and just add my extra pendant right here. Last but not least, you're gonna take some ribbon. You're gonna cut about 10 inches worth of ribbon. I use this lighter to make it so that the edges don't fray over time. Make sure you don't directly put the flame on the ribbon because then it'll start to burn. But before I actually make this ribbon into a bow, I'm gonna take my glue and I'm gonna put a little bit on that silver bead. Boop. Just a little bit like that. And then for the bow, you're gonna make 2 little loops like this. Then you're gonna put that right loop behind that first one. So it looks like this. And then take this loop and put it under into that hole right there. And then kind of like move these bottom parts around so that when you pull, it's not gonna come undone. Then I just like play with it until it looks good enough to be placed onto the keychain. So I have my bow right here, and then there's that glue. I'm just going to lace it on top of there. Don't press too hard so that the glue kind of like goes over the edge. I'm using a gel-based glue or gel consistency, so it's not completely flat, so I can't really like, it'll just move around. Just gonna hold it there for a couple minutes and then your keychain is all done. So let me know if this tutorial was helpful for you, and if you actually decided to make one with me, then I would love to see how it turned out. So tag me on Instagram, it's gonna be in the description. And I have other tutorials too for you if you'd like to check those out. It's linked up here if you want to click up there. Thanks so much for watching. Have a good one.